Can't decide and torn between a romantic, comedy, action, or an indie film to watch for the weekend? Well. Golden State Media Concepts Movie Podcast is your ultimate guide to the latest movies. Join us as we dissect the latest on the blockbusters. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Movie Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Movie Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Heidi, and today we are talking about the 2019 Academy Awards. Yes, it is that time again. We are deep into awards season, and honestly, the Academy Awards are my favorite, of all the award shows. I enjoy the Grammys and, even occasionally enjoy the Emmys, etc. There are many awards, and I like the fashion, I like the red carpet, and I enjoy all of the red carpets, and I like looking at all of the pretty dresses and whatnot. And occasionally, if a guy decides to spice up a suit, I'm down to see it. But honestly, I like the Academy Awards probably related to the history. I enjoy Hollywood movie making history, so that's probably why I enjoy it the most. I like the idea, I guess, of almost seeing what the critics choose, although it's not really the critics, it's the Academy, but I enjoy seeing some of their picks, trying to make predictions about what will be picked and what will be chosen, and then of course giving my angry opinions when I think what should have won didn't win, or just reveling in all of the very odd types of entertainment they try and offer during the Academy Awards. But I am excited to talk about them. I wanted to provide a little bit of history and a little bit of information about the Academy Awards, aka the Oscars. And then I want to talk about the Best Picture nominees, many of which have been discussed. All these movies have been discussed on the podcast before. Even if not by me, I think other people have spoken about them on this show. So to start, the 2019 Academy Awards, they are taking place on February 24th, 2019. I believe that's a Sunday. And the Academy Awards, they are an annual awards show by the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts, and Sciences, the AMPAS. And the various category winners are awarded a copy of a golden statuette, officially called the Academy Award of Merit, although more commonly referred to its nickname Oscar. The award was originally sculpted by George Stanley from a design sketch by Cedric Gibbons. And the Motion Picture Art and Science Academy, they presented it at first in 1929, which was at a private dinner hosted by Douglas Fairbanks, the famous Douglas Fairbanks, in the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel. And the Academy Awards ceremony was first broadcast on radio in 1930 and televised for the first time in 1953. It is the oldest worldwide entertainment awards ceremony, and now it can be seen live worldwide. Also, I don't know if you all have wondered this, but I'm always like, why is it called an Oscar? Because to me, that was just always synonymous to the statue. I never thought about the fact that, it's a nickname because Oscar is a real name for people. I don't know. It's obvious, but I just didn't think about it. So don't worry, whether you are wondering or not, I'm going to tell you. The statue is made of gold-plated bronze on a black metal base, and it's officially called the Academy Award of Merit. It is 13.5 inches tall. It weighs 8.5 pounds. And it's supposed to depict a knight. Well, it does depict this. I never really see it. But it's a knight who's rendered in the Art Deco style. And it's holding a crusader's sword standing on a reel of film with 5 spokes. The 5 spokes apparently represent the original branches of the Academy: actors, writers, directors, producers, and technicians. I don't know. I mean, the design that we have now is a bit more modern. It's been just a little bit streamlined, just a little bit. But I just see it as a guy standing there, like a very mountainous type figure. I don't know. Apparently, the origin of the name Oscar is disputed. One biography of Betty Davis, who was a president of the Academy, claims she named the Oscar after her first husband, band leader Harmon Oscar Nelson. Another origin story is the Academy's executive secretary, Margaret Herrick, who, when she first saw the award in 1931, made a reference to the statuette reminding her of her uncle Oscar, her uncle, that was actually her cousin Oscar, but whatever. And then the columnist Sidney Skolowski was present during when Hendrick named it that, and they took the name in a byline and said, "Employees have affectionately dubbed their famous statuette Oscar." And then it kind of became popular. One of the earliest mentions of the term Oscar dates to a Time magazine article about 1934. So I always call it the Oscar. I call the whole Academy Awards the Oscars. I don't know. I just always have. Anyway, we are going to be talking now about some of the Best Picture nominees. I'm just going to list the movies first. We have Black Panther, BlacKkKlansman, Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favorite, Green Book, Roma, A Star is Born, and Vice. Oh, so many films. Okay, so in a previous episode, I mentioned that I was trying to watch all of the nominees. I have watched all of these films. A previous episode this week will be about Roma and The Favorite, which are wonderful films. They are both tied for having the most nominations. Okay, honestly, I want to say I think Roma should win Best Picture. I feel that it has the best story, best original content. But when I say original, I say that in quotes because I want to briefly rant about my idea of original, especially in movies, because I have been thinking about how so many critically acclaimed films are based on a person who already lived their life, or a story that was previously written, like a movie based off a book or based off a play. And really, I feel like the award-winning films are often not necessarily original, because really the award is being awarded to a well-done portrayal of someone, or the retelling of someone else's writing or someone else's story. And I feel like the most celebrated films are not necessarily original. Bohemian Rhapsody is a great film, but it's really based on the great life of Freddie Mercury. And so really it's not necessarily original. It had to be written. But Freddie Mercury should get the award for living a really interesting and glorious life. But I don't know, it's just a thought on originality in art in general, because what is really original? There are only so many things in the world. You have to just keep retelling it. But I don't know, I guess that many things are original. It's just something I was thinking about. And even Roma, which I think is one of the most original films that's up for Best Picture, even that's based off of the director Alfonso Cuarón's childhood. So it's still based on a memory of something that happened to someone, even if that's not exactly word for word, exactly event for event what happened. But I don't know, still, just thoughts. While you're all listening, just thoughts. Okay, so moving forward, I want to do a breakdown of some of the nominees. And I'm going to start with Black Panther. This is just alphabetical list. Okay, I have not done an episode on Black Panther. I haven't done an episode on Black Panther or BlacKkKlansman, which I have seen both films earlier. Also, Black Panther is the first superhero film to be nominated for Best Picture, which is an achievement on its own, especially there's so many superhero movies out right now. But, okay, what I'm going to say, I think this will probably be divisive because everyone loves Black Panther. I'm not saying that's wrong. Some of my points about the film that I really enjoyed. I think this film has excellent use of sound, sound mixing and original score. It's great. There's this drum beat that comes in at certain times in the film that just signify a change and tension. And I think it is so well done. I was so impressed. I mean, Kendrick Lamar, he is nominated as well. Him and SZA, they're nominated for All the Stars, which is original song for this film, and they're great. Also, the original score is done by Ludwig Goranson, and he is spectacular. The whole score for this film is great. And I enjoyed the sound mixing and all of it. I think it's really well done. I kind of, for like sound mixing, and hopefully I'll be able to do an episode later about the other categories that are for the Oscars and the other nominees. But probably, I don't know. I don't know if it should necessarily win for sound mixing. I think The Favorite should probably win for sound mixing, but still, the sound is really good in this film. And yeah, also the accompanying album that goes along with this film is great. You should really listen to it. The flavor of this film, it's weird to say, but like the particular flavor and feel of this film is really great. Wakanda, the like mythical place where this story takes place is really great. The characters are great. The costuming is great. There's really pride in the film that you can feel the actors had for this. And just the story of a really powerful, technologically advanced African society is really intriguing, really wonderful, very interesting. And it's just this really interesting world that the story was built around. And it also brings up very powerful, like real world talking points. Like, how would our white dominated society react to an actual society like Wakanda if it existed? And it weaves a very interesting story, and I think brings it to ask bigger questions about the real world that we live in. If you have not seen this film, it is a Marvel superhero film. There is lots of fighting and kind of awesome costumes, and like it's very action packed, and it's very good. And I wouldn't say it completely breaks from the traditional Marvel superhero, film equation. But it does have an interesting flavor. That's kind of how I'm going to say it. I'm not sure a better way to explain it, but the costumes are great. Just like it's different from the other Marvel films, and there's a lot of care that went into that and into making it different. Before I continue talking about this film, Black Panther, we're going to take a quick break. So we will be right back.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. Keith keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
Welcome back to the Movie Podcast. We are continuing to talk about the Best Picture nominees, the Academy Awards that are coming up. We are talking about Black Panther. And before the break, I mentioned some of the points about this film that I think are really good, some of the things that they do well, the interesting plot points, the interesting plot concept, really. But I want to mention some of my not so favorable views of this film. I want to mention, I don't think the CGI scenes in this film are very well rendered, especially because this is a superhero film and CGI is very important in these films. I don't think the CGI was great. I think it could have been a lot better. Like, for example, there's a sunset that two characters see. They're like looking out over the plains. I feel like it was kind of just overdone CGI. Like, I felt it looked too fake. And it didn't really add to the film, in my opinion. I just couldn't get over. That's just not a real sunset. And I really couldn't get over that. I didn't think the fight scenes were great. People have complained about like the scenes where they're like fighting in this restaurant, and like that scene wasn't great. And there are other fights that happen. And again, fights are very important to a superhero film, and I didn't think they were great. The dialogue and some of the acting seemed kind of stiff and didn't really flow. I think that's probably based on some of the writing, not necessarily because I think the actors are bad. I just felt it was a little stiff. Could have been better. I don't know. I feel like overall, just as a movie, if you're just looking at it as a purely a film, like just a cinematic experience of watching it, I don't feel like it was that great. I don't think it's anything to really write home about. Again, I mean, I think the flavor is great, but and the sound, but I don't think it's that great. But I do think the most powerful thing about this film, to me, is not the film, I mean, itself or the real viewing of it, but it's like the statement of really that the film makes. Like, it has an almost entirely black cast and production, and it's just this extremely popular and financially successful film, which in and of itself is making a very powerful statement. Kind of like how Crazy Rich Asians was just like, oh, it's a full Asian cast, or, you know, a bunch of people who were Asian worked on this film, and that makes it very noteworthy. But then not just that, it is a very commercially successful film, which means that more opportunities could be opened up because, you know, because of capitalism. And that makes a powerful statement for the movie making industry. And because films like Black Panther or Wonder Woman or Crazy Rich Asians are these great examples in film and in pop culture that people of color and minorities can look to and feel inspired by, that it can create the heroes that children look up to, you know, like not just the white Superman and Batman and Aquaman, etc., but it provides a different type of hero for people. And it means something to a lot of people. And I think that is really important. And just as like, I feel like Wonder Woman really means a lot to a lot of people because of the female protagonist. And that in itself is extremely important and should not be underwritten. I just felt like watching this film, it wasn't that like spectacular for me. Again, this is my opinion. I know it is extremely popular, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I don't think it will win Best Picture. I don't honestly think it should. I'm even on the fence if I think it should be nominated for Best Picture. I think it deserves other awards in other categories, but I don't know how I feel about Best Picture. Also, it points out how sad it is that like this is so noteworthy about, you know, like this film has a black protagonist and focuses on this very Africa-centric world, and like this, you know, it's been so successful. It's kind of, you know, it's sad that that's extremely noteworthy still in our society. But I don't know. I think it's very powerful for those reasons. And the story is good, but I think also the story is a superhero film story. So I don't know, not that revolutionary in that type of sense, in its story sense, but in the impact socially that it has, I think it's extremely important. Okay, I've got that out of the way. All right, I'm going on to the next film, and that's Black Klansman. So if you have not seen Black Klansman, it is by director Spike Lee, and it came out a little while ago, but I did see it and I enjoyed it. It is about Ron Stallworth, who is an African-American police officer in Colorado, and he successfully manages to infiltrate the local Ku Klux Klan branch with the help of his cop partner, and he eventually becomes the Klan's leader. And this is based off of actual events, loosely. So, okay, I think this film can be very funny at times, and, you know, I'm sure people will disagree with me on this, but I think there are some awkward situations, like a bomb threat, and just, like, catching, like, a bigoted, racist cop, like, scenes where I just feel like they're contrived, like, too contrived, and, like, not believable. Like, I feel like the characters are not believable. I feel like Spike Lee is a good director. I enjoy his films, and I think he got snubbed at the Oscars before with Do the Right Thing. Like, Do the Right Thing should have been nominated for Best Picture, but it wasn't, and Best Picture went to Driving Miss Daisy, which in Spike Lee's own words, he said, in an interview, he said he thought that the film Driving Miss Daisy was based on safe stereotypes, and that hurt him more than if his film had not been nominated for an award. I agree. I think Driving Miss Daisy is a safe film about race, and it won, and Do the Right Thing is not necessarily a safe film about race, and it was not even nominated, which is a shame. And I think that Spike Lee deserves a nomination. I just don't think it's for this movie. And honestly, just because he didn't get a nomination and or award in the past does not necessarily mean he should get nominated for this film just because it's his film. I'm sorry. I like Spike Lee. I didn't hate this film. I felt like there were awkward moments. And are there really artfully well done scenes? And I think this also brings up really good conversation about important social topics. I just felt like it was a bit awkward, and I didn't feel like all of the character portrayals were completely. I wasn't captured by it, I guess you could say. So really, I guess it's not my cup of tea, and that's okay if it is yours. And I have a lot of respect for Spike Lee. I think he's a great director. It just wasn't my favorite film by him. Okay, moving on to the extremely popular Bohemian Rhapsody. This film tells the story of late singer Freddie Mercury, who of course is the band Queen's frontman. It starts around the 1970s and leads up to Queen's performance at the Live Aid concert. I just want to say, incredible performance by Rami Malek as Freddie Mercury. He did a spectacular job, I thought, of portraying Freddie Mercury. He's also nominated, Rami Malek is nominated for Best Actor, I think rightfully so. He was really convincing. He disappeared into the role. To be honest, I didn't really notice any of the other actors or that many of the other characters just because Malek's performance was so powerful. I felt like in some ways this movie was like a Queen sing-along. Like, it's a traditional biopic. It didn't really break any barriers in filmmaking. And in many ways, because Rami Malek's performance was so good, I felt that this film was almost reliant too much on him. I do want to make a comment about his portrayal of Freddie. I will say the fake teeth that they gave him to portray Freddie Mercury, who has a very well-known, very toothy smile, I felt like they were a little distracting, mostly because Freddie Mercury's face and head were naturally made to hold those teeth in his mouth. Rami Malek's face was not meant for that many teeth. So I felt like when they put in the fake teeth, it just didn't fit his face. It was kind of distracting. I mean, obviously it didn't fit his face. It wasn't natural, but it was distracting. And I also felt it prevented him from acting with his face a little bit. His mouth just looked so stretched over the teeth. I felt like he couldn't really get the perfect smile, for certain moments. I felt like it might have limited him a bit. And I kind of made Freddie seem a bit more melancholy than I think he necessarily was in all of his life, because I think it almost was hard for him to smile with the teeth. So I think that was interesting. Also, I felt like a lot of people are really taken by the music of this film. And to be honest, I mean, yes, it's Queen. Queen is a great band. If you like the music of this film, then it's probably because you like Queen. If you like Queen, you will enjoy the music. And also, if you're saying you really like it for the music, you like music because it's great, made by a great band. So I don't think the music itself is an extremely, extraordinary thing the film did. The film just used existing great music. So I don't know. That's kind of my opinion on the movie, of the music of the movie. Also, I want to add, the final Live Aid performance that they did, it really, in a lot of parts, a lot of the dancing and the movements of Malek that he did as Freddie really copy the real concert. And it was very well done, I thought, but it just made me want to watch the real concert. And the real concert is on YouTube. You can watch it online. Of course, I can't go to actually watch it. So maybe this rendition on the big screen is the best that I'll ever get. But it was, it's good, but I can't imagine how good seeing Queen in person actually was. 10 times better than this. Despite that, this is an inspiring story. It is based off Freddie Mercury's life, who is an inspiring person, which, I think it lends itself well. I think Malek's performance was great. It's extremely popular and extremely enjoyable. It has a feel-good vibe. Also, not all of the events in this film, the timeline of it, are not all true, which is a bit of a shame. But still, it's an inspiring story. So I will say it's a great film to go see with your families, or a fun night out. It's very enjoyable, and I think it really made me fall in love with Queen all over again. So before we continue talking about the Best Picture nominees, we're going to take a quick break. So hold on, we'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the Movie Podcast. We are continuing to talk about the Academy Award nominees for this year. Before the break, we talked about Bohemian Rhapsody, and we will now be moving on to The Favorite. This film, again, I've talked about it before on the podcast. I mean, we've talked about all of these movies on the podcast. But this film is about Queen Anne, who's very frail and occupies the throne, while her childhood friend Lady Sarah advises her and really does much of the governing. Then new servant Abigail, played by Emma Stone, arrives, and much of her charm endures her to the queen and creates a fight for the favorite between Sarah and Abigail. This film is very artsy. It has great acting. It provides really very meaty acting roles to the three main actresses, Olivia Colman, Rachel Weisz, and Emma Stone. And all of them are nominated, and very rightfully so. I really feel that often the fault of a lot of female roles in films is not the actress necessarily, but it is because the roles are sort of written sort of unimpressive and forgetful or forgettable. And I think it's because sometimes the characters just aren't fully fleshed out. They're not written extremely good parts. And I think that, you know, obviously as good of an actress as you can put into a role won't make it exceptional if the material isn't there. And I think they gave these actresses really wonderful roles, and it helps them just shine. In this film, it's just this amazing acting showcase. I mean, among other things, it is this truly wonderful acting showcase, and I enjoyed it. I just ate that up. They did a very good job. I think particularly Olivia Colman really stood out. And I don't know. I guess I have to review the other Best Actress nominees, but I would not be surprised if she took the Oscar home for this role. Also, this film is probably one of the more in-your-face, artsy-fartsy movies of the Best Picture nominees. I will talk about Vice later, but I felt like there were at times when it was on the line of being like so artsy, but it's still not an art house film that's kind of distracting and annoying. Like, it's not in the realm of like Andy Warhol, like art film. It's not in a museum. It's in like the more big public art, like the big public movie theater. And because of that, I was a little distracted about how hard they were trying to be artsy. Like they had like a wide angle fisheye lens, which I felt was used a little too much. The final scene, which I don't think was bad, but again, heavy on the really like the director being like, I'm super artsy and you're going to like it and you're going to watch it and you're going to wonder what this means and then be in awe of how smart I am. I felt that a little too much. And I don't know, that was a little bothersome. Overall though, you should see this movie. It's not, extremely historical. It's a bit like about gossip of what went on at this time, but very entertaining and also funny. I really enjoyed the humor that this film had. Moving on to the next nominee is Green Book. This is a sort of like comedy drama. It's set in the Deep South in the 1960s, and it follows the musical tour of African-American classical and jazz pianist Don Shirley and Tony Vallelonga, who's his Italian-American like driver and kind of bodyguard. I would say this is the most feel-good film of all of the ones on the list. It's sort of like heartwarmingly funny, but it's really not a film that makes you think hard. It just didn't go deep into so many issues that it could have and really should have. It just skates on the surface. It's traditional. I mean, it just feels like you've already seen it. Like if you've already seen Remember the Titans or The Blind Side, like you know how stories like this kind of end. Like they become friends. Like that's kind of it. The roles that, the acting of Mahershala Ali and Viggo Mortensen, I think was really good. They could have gone easily over the top with Tony's character as being like a super Italian stereotype. They didn't, which I'm glad. He kept it restrained and he still made it funny. Mahershala Ali had a great performance as well. You can just see like just the edges of his character, like Dr. Shirley just on the edge of, I guess, he feels the pressure of his life. And you can see him portray that very well. And I don't know. I will say there is a difference between critics and audience choice. The audience loved this film. I don't think critics particularly did. I think probably because it really, like, it didn't go into these issues that it could have. Issues about race, just issues about self-identity, and instead it just kind of made us laugh, which isn't bad, but just the idea of like, do contemporary audiences need another movie like this, like about the 1960s, like really like terrible racism, and then just to make us feel like we've come so far? Like I mean that raises a lot of questions, like how far have we come? But also I just don't think we need films like this anymore. Like at a time where we are now, we need films that are deeper and make us think more about these types of questions, not just like that in the 1960s, like two guys from different races became friends and therefore, you know, racism is dead. Like, I just feel like that's not the movie that we want or deserve anymore. I mean, granted, I have to say I enjoyed watching this film, but honestly, I enjoyed watching this film because sometimes being inside the Matrix is nicer than actually living in the real world. Like being presented this view of this like very clean, tidy, like we're just gonna like the characters kind of get over their racist views and now the world is fine. Like that is much nicer of a message than the real world. So, I mean, I think I kind of liked it because of that. But I mean, I don't know. It's nominated and I think it's a pretty good contender to win. The next film on the list is Roma. I've talked about this again recently. This film is set in the 1970s, and it's a semi-autobiographical take on the film director Alfonso Cuarón's upbringing in Mexico City, and it follows the life of a live-in housekeeper of a middle-class family. And this film, oh gosh, it is so beautiful. I have to say, like, so many things about it are just gorgeous. It's shot in black and white, and that's not like a terribly distracting thing that I think will make young people not want to watch it. It's beautiful. I think it will become a classic, not in the same way that I think Green Book feels classic, but this will become something that I think students will like watch and just read into. The acting is wonderful. Netflix honestly has hit a jackpot with this film. They should be very proud. The imagery is great. You can just eat it up with a spoon. It's deep, and the cinematography is so rich. The camera movement is so beautiful. Everything about this is so purposeful. Every piece of it just compels you to the next piece, and it just results in this meticulously crafted film. This, like, every little bit means something that you see and you can take in and understand, and it, like a good essay, just leads you on to its next point and does so gracefully, and it leads you on gently. It doesn't just shove in your face artsy things, which I just really appreciated. I think this film should win. If it will, though, is a different story. The next film is A Star is Born, and this is about a established country musician who helps a young singer find fame. It's a story about alcoholism and age and obsolescence in the whole music world. And like, this is really the retelling of a story. This kind of movie, these characters have been told multiple times before. And like, it's an old story, but it was like given new life. Directed by Bradley Cooper, also starring Lady Gaga. They are both incredible. Lady Gaga, I was so impressed. Her portrayal is so real, so believable. And Bradley Cooper, he did a great job too. I did not know he could sing, but he portrays a country star. He does it so well. He disappeared into this role. I was so impressed. This film is beautiful, heartbreaking, and real. I think, again, this is really an audience choice and an audience favorite. The songs play on the radio all the time from this movie. Rightfully so. The music was really great. To be honest, I don't think this is going to win Best Picture. I'm not saying it doesn't deserve to be in this category. I don't think it will win. I don't think the Academy will give it to it. I was very impressed. Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga stepped outside, I think, what they're already wonderful and expectant roles. You know, Lady Gaga's already a great singer and musician, and Bradley Cooper is a great actor, but he became this even more impressive director and even more impressive actor. And Lady Gaga, I see her now as this incredible actor. So, I don't know. I was very impressed, and it's a tearjerker, so beware. Okay, next film, Vice. Vice is about Dick Cheney, who is an unassuming bureaucratic Washington insider who quietly wielded immense power. He became the vice president to President George W. Bush and really reshaped the country in a way that we still feel today. This film had dark humor. It had this big bag of movie-making tricks, like fourth wall breaking, so many jokes, just this like narration that they reveal the narrator as a character in the story, and then like they had jokes like this untraditional like end, like they said like the movie ended and played credits in the middle of the film when obviously it hadn't ended. I mean, really, the director is just throwing everything at you. It's a little much. I think he should have been reined in a bit. The director, Adam McKay, also made The Big Short before making Vice, and he learned and was harnessing all these tricks from The Big Short, like the fourth wall breaking, and he's going to like explain complicated subjects to you. In The Big Short, it's economics, and then in Vice, it becomes just like, unilateral power, and he explains that in a funny, interesting way, and I think that was okay, but just the overwhelming use of these like little movie making tricks, I just think was too much. I enjoyed this film. I found it very entertaining, and it's, I would say, more creative of a biopic than like Bohemian Rhapsody is. Bohemian Rhapsody is so traditional and almost stiff, and it's telling of Freddie Mercury's life. This is definitely more loose and more freewheeling and more fun of its telling about Dick Cheney. Also, this film is extremely political. It tells you that Dick Cheney is just like the worst villain ever. So if you want to go see that with your family, if they might be maybe disagree with that type of message, I would say you're in for some very interesting after movie conversation. But I felt like this film was very entertaining. I don't really think this film will win Best Picture. I think it really comes down between Roma and Green Book. But we'll see. I think maybe The Favorite will be right up after that as a good contender. But this film is entertaining. I think you should see it. If you don't want to be told that Dick Cheney is the worst, probably don't watch it. But Christian Bale really did disappear into the role. And this really is an actorly showcase of actors portraying other people, which is interesting. I felt like for a movie where the actors are portraying real life people and disappearing into the roles, I really felt like The Favorite did it better. But Vice was good at it still, although I do feel like a lot of Christian Bale's portrayal has to do with his prosthetics to make him look like Dick Cheney, which is not bad. The makeup team did well. I just feel like it's was a lot. It was so actorly, so drama school. The actors like were almost overindulged in like impressing each other, I felt like, with their impersonations, which I enjoyed watching, but it could be a little much at times. I think there are things about it that could have been reined in. And at a certain point, I got a little tired of the director telling me how tricky they were by like, I don't know, doing this little like, and then we're going to cut here, and then we're going to go to this, and then you're going to have this scene that is completely fantasized, but, you know, like, it's going to make you laugh, or it's going to make you read into it that maybe means something, but I'm not really sure, and I don't know. It was a little too much, in my opinion. I think you should see it. I guess just to finish the show, I want to say you should see all of the movies for Best Picture. They are all wonderful films. I think they are all deserving of your time. And I am looking forward to the Oscars. I hope that all of you can watch the Oscars and enjoy the films and enjoy the beautiful red carpet moments. So that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you so much for listening, and please tune in to the next movie episode.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Movie Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.